Hey VC, I think today I'm just going to hit you with a new finds video. Been buying a fair bit recently from all sorts of places. Had a really good haul from a local charity shop. I'm not going to show everything, but show a few choice items from there. My current favourite local record shop, which is Shack's Stacks of Wax in Kingston. I've had some online buys and been to my local record fair as well, so I've got a good selection of stuff. I'm just going to show you a few favourite items, and I'll start off with this by Bjorn Jason Lind. The album's called Sissel or Sizzle, and he's a Swedish composer, pianist, flute player. I think he plays a bit of sax as well, could be wrong. And I'd seen this online and had toyed with the idea of getting it, and something had put me off. I don't know why, perhaps I thought it'd be a bit elevator music. But I found this for, I think it was £3 in a charity shop, and thought, that's the kind of price where I'm prepared to give it a go. And oh my God, is this good. I absolutely love it. Brilliant stuff. There's the inside of the gatefold, and it features, where is he? This guy, Jan Schaefer, on guitar. And I have Jan Schaefer's second solo album, which I've been meaning to show and talk about a bit, which is superb. And when I saw that he played on this, I thought, yeah, it's definitely got to be worth a go. And it is. Some people on online reviews have compared this to the soundtrack to a 70s porn movie, which I suppose I can see that. It's got a sort of funky wah-wah grooves to it. There's a lot more to it than that. It starts off with a track called Bulldog, which is a really funky stone sort of an amble. And it sounds almost like the soundtrack to a 70s cartoon. It might even have worked well as part of the soundtrack to Nilsson's The Point. There's lots of flute, choppy guitar, and gliding strings on here. And that track is it's a great way to start the album, it really is. I suppose representing the bulldog of the title, there's this weird sound towards the end which sounds a bit like a dog barking, but it almost sounds like, scratching, but long before scratching became a thing, so I'm not sure how that sound was produced, but great stuff. I mean, elsewhere on here, what we've got is a track called Certo's Pilas, and again, tons of flute, electric piano, a bit of a classical, almost a Jethro Tull kind of a swing to it. Lots of spiralling clarinet and flute, and a bunch of busy rhythms. I mean, I could go through it track by track. I don't know whether that's really necessary. Bits of it sound like sort of funky blaxploitation soundtracks. There's tons of funk on here. There's a track called Your Own House, which it sounds a bit like, I think it's called Flute Song, a track by Sea Train, which is a really good song, really good track, and that really reminds me of this. Yeah, there's some great electric bass sort of grooves, Fender Rhodes, ton of funky drumming, and the only downer on this is it finishes with a cover of Joe South's Games People Play, which is a bit of a safe way to end the album, and a bit of a damp squib. This is all instrumental. It's all fantastic, apart from the cover at the end, which is merely okay. But if you see this one, pick it up. It's really good stuff. And for £3, can't go wrong. And from the same charity shop, now everyone else on the VC seems to be showing a copy of this at the moment, so when I saw this for £2, I thought, yeah, I'll give it a go. Julie London, and Julie is her name. Now this is a Edsel reissue. I don't care about that, as long as it plays well, and this plays beautifully. And this is a good album. It's probably very good of its type, which is kind of smoky late night vocal jazz. If that's your thing, I'm sure you'll really get off on it. I've enjoyed it when I've listened to it. But do I get excited about it? No, not really. But I've only played it once. So let's see if it grows on me. But, you know, it's got the usual standards on here, like Cry Me a River and Easy Street, and they're beautifully done. But this seems a very fashionable album to own on the VC at the moment. I thought I'd jump on that bandwagon and see what was missing, and it's kind of what I expected, I suppose. But yeah, very listenable. And perhaps I'm being, you know, I'm damning it with faint praise, but like I say, after one listen, it's an enjoyable late night sort of vocal jazz album. And again from that same shop, and I did do well in that shop, I tell you. They had a ton of vinyl, absolute ton. I think they collect it up, and a couple of times a year they have a vinyl weekend where they sell a whole bunch of stuff. And this was actually the stuff that didn't sell at their vinyl weekend. So what I missed out on, I don't know, but the stuff left was pretty damn good. I picked up this album. It's Kim Wilde's Select album, and I'm familiar with Kim Wilde. Her Kids in America single was huge when I was a kid, and I loved that. I've got that in the collection somewhere. It's a good bit of new wave. But this album's far more synth pop. If anything, I'd say it's almost like a cross between Gary Newman and Blondie at their most sort of electronic. And it's a really good album. I mean, Kim Wilde's not got the strongest voice in the world, but I don't think she'd ever claim that she did. But the songwriting on here is good. I think her dad and her brother were responsible for writing a lot of the material on here. And like I say, cross between Blondie and Gary Newman. And I guess Kim Wilde was kind of the UK answer to Debbie Harry, or that's how she was trying to position herself. And I like her. She was never as edgy as Debbie Harry. Always felt a little bit like, you know, Daddy was kind of pulling the strings. And you can hear the odd sort of element of 60s pop in here. It's obvious that Marty Wilde, her dad, perhaps has written a few of the songs on here. The 60s elements are heavily disguised in the synth sounds. And it's good stuff. The single Cambodia is on here, which was a bit left field after hitting big with Kids in America. So she wasn't afraid to try something new. And for me on this album, the track Take Me Tonight is a bit of a highlight, which has a touch of a Doctor Who theme, you know, the Delia Derbyshire TV theme in the synth patterns. And it's some good stuff. I mean, it's not going to rival your Kraftwerk albums or anything like that, but it is well worth checking out, particularly if you can get it for £1.50, which is what I paid for this, and it's a absolutely pristine copy. So yeah, probably wouldn't have got it if it'd been any more expensive, but I'm really pleased to have picked it up. Then next up, and this was also from that same charity shop, and it's Nas Nomad and the Nightmares and Give Daddy the Knife, Cindy, which is a neo Psych album, mainly covers. There's a couple of originals on here, and it's known, if it's known at all, as being a sort of pseudonym for the Damned. They basically got together, and I think before XTC had done their Dukes of Stratosphere albums, Nas Nomad and the Nightmares, the Damned, decided to do their sort of homage to 60s garage psych, and as such it's admirable that they've done it and, you know, showed their enthusiasm for this type of music. But it doesn't move me, and do I really need to hear someone covering I Had Too Much to Dream Last Night when I can just listen to the original? Not really. It's a decent album. It's an enjoyable listen. Will it get a lot of play? I don't know. I'm not sure what would bring me back to it. It's on this rather nice purple vinyl, which looks more sort of pinky pinky red in this light, but trust me, it is very grape purple. And it'll stick around in the collection for a while. I'll decide whether I like it enough to keep it. But it was another one that I thought was worth a punt. And then the last one I'm going to show you from that particular collection at the charity shop is one by Michael Chapman, the man who hated mornings. Now, I don't know Michael Chapman as well as I should. A good friend of mine is always telling me that I need to check him out, and until I bought this album, I had only really dipped into listening to the odd bit online. Great singer-songwriter, really good guitar player. And I've listened to this once and enjoyed it, but I haven't listened to it close enough to have an awful lot to say about it. But on the strength of this, I'm looking forward to listening to some of what are his more highly rated albums, to be honest, his earlier albums, because this was sort of a mid-70s album, 77 even, I think, perhaps. It's on the Criminal Records label. It's a Greek pressing, strangely. But again, I wasn't going to pass that up when I saw it. So yeah, Michael Chapman. I might be reporting back on this one if it really grabs me. So there you go. That's the charity shop finds. And then my local, current favourite local record shop, I'd say Shack's in Kingston upon Thames, always has good stuff. Has a quick turnover of stock, and has things you don't normally see in the wild, or rarely see in the wild. Okay, this isn't a super rare album, but it's difficult to find it in the wild. And Shocking Blues self-titled album, fair bit of ring wear on there, but I can live with that. Now I've got the Music on Vinyl reissue, which it's all a bit complicated when they reissue these Shocking Blue albums, because they were called different things in different territories, and the tracks were slightly different, and some had more tracks, some had fewer tracks. And their At Home with Shocking Blue album, which has a great cover with them sat around with a sitar and all that kind of stuff. The Music on Vinyl reissue sounds fantastic. It is from a digital source. I know that for a fact, because at the very end of one of the tracks, on the fade out, you can hear whatever the digital source is skipping, which I didn't notice it first time I listened to it, but now that I'm aware of it, every time I listen to the album I can hear that, and it's a bit annoying. So again, I saw this pretty cheap and I thought, yep, I will get this. Hasn't got all the same tracks on, but it's got a lot of them. And you know, everyone knows Venus, even if I only know it because Bananarama covered it. But the singer on this, what's the singer's name? Mariska Veres. Fantastic voice, really good voice. I love her voice. It's so far removed from the blues wailers that I really don't like. And the rest of the band's superb as well. You know, tons of great guitar on here. Fair bit of sitar, bit of tabla on here as well. And for me, the best track is The Butterfly and I, which is a great Psych track and shows exactly how horns can be used in rock music without ruining it. It's a sensational song. You should check that out. Listen to it online, The Butterfly and I. If you don't know that track, listen to it. It's so good. Such a great, moody, exciting horn and guitar riff at the end, which completely different to anything else I've really heard. So very pleased to have that in the collection. And then from the same shop, this is one I've been after for a long time, and struggled to find it at a decent price, and to find it anywhere apart from online, and normally with very expensive postage, and you never quite know what you're getting. And it's Mahogany's self-titled album. Now these guys were British, I believe. Reading the sleeve notes on the back, looks like they were. And produced this one album of extremely good electric, hard blues rock with some psych elements. The cover gets some criticism when people review it, and it's not the most exciting, but I love the way that that band logo pops against that mahogany sleeve. They don't look like the sort of guys who are going to have been pinned up on too many girls' walls, but I guess the music is what matters. And it's some really good stuff. Again, I've listened to it the once, so I'm not going to attempt to do a breakdown of individual songs, but it's well worth checking out, and no doubt you can listen to this online to get a feel for what it's about, but it's well worth investigating. Did I say that was the last one I got from that shop? Because it wasn't. I also, in Shaq's bargain bin, which is pretty extensive and really cheap, everything £1, I got Chicago 3, a double album, and it's when Chicago was still a really great progressive horn rock band, and this is really experimental. It's really exciting. The excitement is sustained over all four sides of the vinyl. And basically, if you have dismissed Chicago because you only know their later schmaltzy pop hits, forget it. You need to own at least the first 3 albums, I'd say. They're all double albums, and they're all fantastic. And it's always confusing when you're buying Chicago albums because you have to really search to find out which particular number of album you're looking at. I mean, fortunately, the hype sticker here mentions Chicago 3, otherwise I wouldn't know whether this was Chicago 3 or Chicago 17, but yeah, this is Chicago 3. Really worth checking out. Hype sticker here says that it includes a poster and a complete lyric sheet. This copy has neither, but it's got the 2 discs. They're in fantastic condition. A really good buy. And now on to the online finds. And I bought these next 2 albums from the same seller. And I took a bit of a risk because they're described as VG. And someone's either been really honest, so you're letting yourself in for something that's pretty crackly and marked, or it's just someone can't really be bothered doing a accurate grading, so they just hedge their bets. So I thought perhaps I'd get something which was pretty unplayable, or something just about playable, and I felt loath to get rid of it, and you know how it is. It's always a risk buying online. But the price of this was particularly good, and postage was free. So this, Pulse, their self-titled album on Major Minor Records, UK pressing, cost me £18, including postage. And it goes for a lot more. And yes, the sleeve has a fair bit of creasing and ring wear and surface scuffs. The back has a bit of ring wear, but it's all sound. There are no rips or horrendous sticker marks or anything like that. And the important thing is that the record plays really, really well. And this is probably in line for my purchase of the year so far. And that's having only played it once. I absolutely love this album. I mean, it gets described as Psych. Psych elements on this are, I wouldn't say the minimal, but it's not how I'd categorise this album. It's more hard rock than it is Psych, and at times it's proto metal. And considering this came out in, was it 68, I think? They were ahead of their time by 3 or 4 years, I think, really, judging by the sound on this album. Starts off with a track called Too Much Loving, which is bluesy hard rock with wailing harmonica, gravelly vocals, and it's almost like early Status Quo when they're transitioning from their kind of psych pop days to their greasy biker boogie sort of sound before they commercialised at all. Second track, Another Woman, features acid guitar, perhaps where the psych comes in, I guess. Some real fluid bass, has a real cream vibe to it. There's sort of bass harmonica interplay, and it has a real kind of feel of The Wizard by Black Sabbath. Elsewhere, the final track on side one, Thanks for Thinking of Me, is the only duffer on here. It's pretty generic, sort of white boy, 12-bar blues. Could live without it, but you know, it doesn't outstay its welcome. And it's the only sort of slight down point on this record. Then you got more sort of heavy cream proto metal riffing, starting off with, on side two with Low Down. And yeah, pretty much the same with She's Killing Me, second track. Then third track, Garden of Love, has an acoustic guitar intro. Has a bit of a Led Zepp 3 sort of feel to it. Great vocal on it. It's dreamy and pastoral. Harmony vocals and organ on the outro. And that's a real highlight for me. Then you've got a track called Emasculation, which is a groovy mid-paced hard rock song, which is utterly superb. Love it. And to finish, a track called My Old Boy, which has a vocal which sounds quite a lot like Roger Chapman from Family. Musically, it's quite like The Who. There's some trebly sort of Pete Townsend-like guitar on here, and some real driving bass, very much in the sort of John Entwistle mould. So this one I cannot recommend highly enough. I didn't actually think I'd ever get a copy of this because I've never seen one out in the wild. When it appears online, it's normally in the States, and it normally goes for an absolute fortune. So to have a price of £18 on this, and it wasn't a buy it now, it was an auction, but no one else bid on it, probably because they took a look at the cover and thought, well, the cover's in that state, God knows what the record is like. But it's actually plays really, really well. So definitely worth the slight risk of bidding on this one. Great stuff. And then the second one I bought off that vendor online, and this again, free shipping, cost me £8 all in, was a reissue of the Ghosts album, which was originally titled When You're Dead 1 Second, and this has been retitled for 1 Second, and it's a Bam Caruso reissue. What year I couldn't tell you. Don't know, maybe it says inside. It's a good reissue. It's quality sleeve notes. 1987 this came out. And the original album came out in 1970. They were an English band, and this reissue has a different cover, and it has all the same tracks, but they've completely changed the running order. I'm not sure why they've done that. Perhaps they thought that it made for a better listen. I'm not complaining because it sounds great, and I don't know what the original running order would have sounded like. This does get criticism in some reviews for being a bit all over the place stylistically. In part, I think that's because there are some songs which have male vocals and others which have female vocals, and a lot of the reviews I've read, the reviewers seem to prefer the female-led tracks. I like them both, and the male vocals are a little bit sort of macho and portentous, and I just find that entertaining, so I have no problem with that at all. Admittedly, I think the female vocals are really good on this, and tracks with the female singer bring to mind that kind of US West Coast psychedelic sound. Probably a little bit late in the days. This was 1970, but it's a really good album. There's some really heavy material on here. It's good and psychedelic, slight folk inflections in some of it. At times people have compared it to early head's gone. Early, I was going to say Fleetwood Mac, not Fleetwood Mac at all. Begins with an F. Early Fairport Convention. Got there in the end. So, a really good album. I never see original copies around. And for a nanosecond, I thought, oh, do I buy a reissue with different sleeve art, or do I hold out until now? For £8 I'm getting this. I'm so glad I have. Really, really enjoyable album. And again, I've only given it a couple of spins, but this will be getting a lot of play, I'm sure of that. And the final album I'm going to show today is one I've been after for quite some time. Got this at my local record fair last weekend and got it for what I thought was a really, really good price. And that's the Youngbloods Elephant Mountain album. And it's one of those albums I've sampled bits of it online, never listened to it all the way through, and just trusted it was going to be really good. And it is. It's right up my street. It gets described as psychedelic, and there's some psychedelic touches, but it's more in that kind of cosmic country kind of a way. It's folk rock on the whole. So there's some country, there's jazz elements. It's just a really nice, mellow listen with a few surprises in here as well. I need to immerse myself in this one to really get to grips with it, but having played it through a couple of times, I've really enjoyed it. I mean, so far, my favourite track is probably the first track, Darkness, Darkness. But it doesn't really dip from there. It's all really good stuff, and I'm sure a lot of you know this album a heck of a lot better than I do, but I'm very pleased to have added this to the collection. So that was the only album, in fact, I bought at the record fair. I had a very modest little spending spree there. A couple of other things I bought there, which I'm quite pleased to have, are this single by Spirit, which is actually re-recordings from the 80s of Mr. Skin and Fresh Garbage. And the interesting thing about this is that it's my first 6-inch single. And not that you can tell on screen that that's a 6-inch single, unless I hold it up against a normal 7-inch. Even that doesn't actually do a terribly good job, does it? But trust me, it's a 6-inch single, not a 7-inch single. And the re-recorded tracks, they're pretty good. I mean, what it does show you is that those two tracks are classics, and it's pretty hard to mess them up, because even, you know, recorded 80s style in an 80s recording studio and updated, they still sound absolutely killer. Not as good as the originals, but it's interesting. It's an interesting little curio to have anyway. So yeah, there's that Spirit single. And then I bought another copy of this single. I think it's the third one I've had, but it's one that always seems to turn up in fairly trashed condition, and I'm just always looking for the perfect copy. And it's always cheap, so it's not much of an outlay to get it. And that's Simon Says by 1910 Fruit Gum Company. And that isn't a very good song. So you're probably thinking, well, why the heck are you buying a song you don't like? It's because the B-side is a superb pop psych song. Reflections from the Looking Glass, I think, is sensational. I've got it on a mellow psych Spotify playlist that I regularly stick on in the car, and I can't get enough of this track. It's superb. So if you see this when you're out and about, the Simon Says single by 1910 Fruit Gum Company, yes, they're bubble gum, but they occasionally had forays into pop psych, and that is a particularly fantastic track. So look out for that one. So that's it for now. I've got a bunch of other videos in the pipeline, but as you know, they happen when they happen. And please comment. Always good to get your comments, get your feedback, fill in some of the details about these records that I don't know, or your opinions on them. And I'll see you soon. Bye then.